The white roses hit Aurora Blackwood in the face before the whole chapel. One thorn cut her cheek. Cain Gray watched the blood fall and called her a jealous beast. No one moved. Not her father. Not the northern elders. Not the white-robed moon priest who held their wedding contract in both shaking hands. Aurora stood on the church steps with the wind pulling at her black cloak. Her silver hair had come loose from its pins. Her cheek burned. Her wolf stirred under her ribs and struck bone like a trapped blade. Across from her, Cain stood beneath the carved moon arch of Thunderhold Chapel. He wore the gray mantle of his house. A silver clasp shaped like a storm wolf pinned it at his throat. His eyes, once warm as rain over slate, were now hard and bright. Beside him leaned Celine. Poor Celine. Soft Celine. The orphan cousin with lowered lashes and a voice that always broke at the right moment. She pressed a trembling hand to her bandaged shoulder. Blood had seeped through the linen. It marked her gown in a dark crescent. Her face was pale. Her mouth quivered. Aurora knew that wound. She knew she had not made it. Cain lifted the parchment contract. Its wax seals swung from red cords. Blackwood, Gray, Moon Council. 3 seals for a bond older than both of them. Aurora Blackwood, he said, and his voice filled the courtyard. You cannot bear your cousin receiving kindness. You cannot bear that weakness might deserve mercy. You poisoned her. You shamed her. Last night you set your claws on her flesh. A murmur ran through the gathered packs. Aurora looked at Celine. Celine looked back for one heartbeat only. There was no fear in her eyes. Only victory. I did none of this, Aurora said. Her voice came out low, too low for the crowd. The wind ate it. Cain heard her. His jaw tightened. You said that after the banquet, too. Aurora remembered the banquet. Celine falling backward beside the high table, wine scattering across the rushes, Cain catching her before she hit the floor. Everyone turning. Everyone seeing Aurora with one hand still raised because she had reached to stop the fall. You said it after the letters, Cain continued. The letters. 3 folded sheets in her maid Lena's trunk, cruel little lines written in a hand close enough to Lena's. Half-breed. Broken wolf. Charity bone. You said it after the moon rite. The rite. Celine screaming under the full moon, her body twisting, her dull brown pelt flashing through her skin, a hidden dose of wolfsbane ash on her tongue. Aurora had smelled it too late. Cain stepped down one stair. And last night she crawled to me through the thorn hedge with your claw marks in her shoulder. Celine sobbed into her sleeve. Aurora's wolf snapped its teeth. She wanted to drag Celine into the open mud. She wanted to tear away the bandage and make every elder smell the wound. Wild wolf teeth, thorn cuts, self-made lies. The truth was there. It had always been there. But truth needed time. Celine had stolen that too. Cain gripped the contract with both hands. House Gray will not take a snake heart for its Luna. The word struck harder than the roses. Aurora had known Cain since she was 6. He had climbed the western tower with scraped knees and a wooden sword. He had sworn under cold moonlight that if the whole north turned cruel, he would stand beside her. She had given him a strip of ribbon from her sleeve. He had tied it around his wrist and called it a pup oath. Now he tore their marriage contract in 2. The sound was small. The ruin was not. Parchment pieces flew across the church steps. White roses rolled under boots. Celine cried harder. Cain put one arm around her and did not look at Aurora again. Aurora did not cry. That was the first thing the North remembered. She only bent, picked up one torn corner of the contract, and folded it once, then twice. Then she slipped it into the sleeve of her black gown. You will regret this, she said. Cain's lip curled. No, I will survive you. 3 months later, his silver-plated wedding carriage crossed the Blackwood border. Aurora watched from the battlement. Celine sat beside him in a white gown trimmed with moon roses. Cain had ordered the road strewn with the same flowers. Their wheels crushed petal after petal into the dark mud of Blackwood land. White for the moon goddess. White for a permitted bride. White for an insult that would not wash away. Aurora's father stood beside her in silence. Lord Blackwood had gone old in those 3 months. His beard had more frost than black. The council had pressed him to keep peace. Thunderhold held the northern passes. Grey wolves guarded the iron roads. Blackwood blood was old, but age did not stop an army. "Do not answer this," he said. Aurora watched the carriage vanish between pines. "I already answered," she said. That night she went to the locked library beneath the old keep. Blackwood Hall had been razed before the church bells came north. Its lower stones were older than kings. The library smelled of dust, oak, and buried rain. Moonlight entered through a slit window and fell over chained books. Aurora carried no lamp. Her blood did not need one. The rare moon silver line of House Blackwood woke under her skin when darkness grew deep. It made her veins shine faintly. It calmed raging alphas. It steadied blood fever. It made her valuable enough for old men to discuss her future over wine before she had grown tall enough to reach the table. It had not saved her from one crying cousin. She searched until dawn. Near morning, behind a carved panel marked with the first Blackwood crest, she found the iron casket. Inside lay a book bound in cracked wolf hide. The hunter's banishment notes. Her great-grandfather's private hand. Aurora read until her eyes burned. At first, the entries spoke of border raids, church spies, and villages burned by witch hunters. Then the names changed. One name cut through the page. Mara Vale. Celine's mother. Mara had not died in fever, as Celine had always been told. Mara had sold 3 hidden wolf dens to human witch hunters in return for land and a church title. 30 wolves had burned in silver nets. 7 pups had never been found. Mara was caught at the Red Ford with church coin sewn into her bodice. The council had executed her at moonrise. Blackwood had spared her child. Aurora turned the last page with numb fingers. Mercy had raised Celine. Mercy had fed her. Mercy had given her a bed in the same hall as the daughter she would one day ruin. By noon, Aurora had copied the entries. By dusk, she rode north with 3 family elders and the old book wrapped against her chest. She thought truth would strike like a bell. Instead, the council gates were already closed. Thunderhold rose on a black cliff where lightning often struck the towers. Wolves from 12 houses crowded the judgment hall. Gray banners hung from the rafters. Priests burned moon sage in iron bowls. The air carried fear and hot metal. Celine stood at the center in morning white. Cain stood behind her. The sight of him behind her hurt more than Aurora had expected. Celine held a bundle of letters. "Aurora came for revenge," Celine whispered. Somehow everyone heard. "She blamed me for Lord Grey choosing mercy. Then she wrote to the church. She told them which villages hid wolf children. She wanted the border to burn so Cain would crawl back to her." An elder snatched the letters and read them aloud. The handwriting was almost Aurora's. Almost. The seals were Blackwood seals. Stolen seals. The dates matched nights when Aurora had been alone in the library. Of course they did. Celine had grown up in Blackwood Hall. She knew its servant stairs. She knew where wax was stored. She knew which guard drank too much at midnight. Aurora pushed forward. "Those are forged." Celine flinched as if struck. Cain's eyes flashed wolf silver. "Enough." Aurora threw the copied pages at the elder's feet. "Read these. Her mother sold our people to hunters." The hall erupted. Celine gave one thin cry and collapsed. Cain caught her again. Always catching her. Lord Ash of the Stonefang pack bent to pick up the pages. His eyes moved across the writing. His face changed. For one breath, Aurora felt the floor steady. Then Celine spoke from Cain's arms. She hates me for my blood. Now she spits on my dead mother too. The breath died. Lord Ash looked at Aurora as if she had brought rot into the hall. Another elder rose. Whether the mother sinned or not, the daughter stands under Grey protection. And what of the forged letters? Aurora asked. We will examine them. She knew that voice. Examination meant delay. Delay meant rumor. Rumor meant guilt. Cain looked tired suddenly. Not angry. Tired. That hurt worst. Aurora, he said, stop before you destroy what remains of your house. She stared at him. You were easier to fool than a child. His face went white. The council did not forgive the insult. By moonrise, they stripped her blackwood crest from her cloak. The iron pin tore the cloth. Someone read the decree. Exile from the Northern Council. Loss of speaking rights before the 12 houses. Banishment beyond the southern salt flats until the council saw fit to recall her. They expected her to beg. She did not. Aurora walked out under a sky without stars. Snow began before midnight. By the third day, the northern pines were gone, the land flattened. Wind scraped over white-crusted earth. Salt shone in the cracks like old bone. No banners flew there. No pure blood family kept a hall there. It was a place for broken wolves, failed heirs, and children born between named lines. The South called them mongrels. The North used kinder words in public. Mixed blood. Bent form. Moon-touched. Unfit for ritual. Aurora had heard all of them at council tables. She had never answered. Now those people watched her from ruined walls as she crossed the flats. Some had wolf ears that never vanished. Some walked with claws instead of hands. One old woman had a tail like smoke. A boy near a dry well had one gold eye and one blind white eye. They smelled her pure line and pulled back. Not with respect. With memory. Pure bloods came here only to punish, hunt, or die. Aurora kept walking. The storm found her at dusk. It came low and violent across the flats. Salt and snow lashed her face. Her horse screamed when the ground cracked under one hoof. Aurora cut the reins and sent the animal toward the lee of a stone ridge. Then she heard the boy. Not a cry. A choking snarl. She turned into the wind. 50 paces away, something thrashed beneath a broken shrine. A young wolf, half-shifted, had one forepaw pinned to the earth by an iron spike. Silver wire twisted around it. Blood hissed where metal touched flesh. Witch hunter work. Aurora ran. The boy snapped at her as she reached him. He could not be more than 14. His face flickered between human and wolf. Pain had stolen reason from him. Hold still, she said. He bit her wrist. Her blood touched his tongue. He froze. Moon silver moved through him like cool water. His wild eyes cleared. They are coming back, he whispered. Then we leave first. Aurora wrapped her cloak around the spike, braced both feet, and pulled. The iron held. She pulled again. Skin tore from her palms. The boy shook. Behind them, bells rang in the snow. Hunter bells. 3 shapes appeared in the storm. Men in leather masks, crossbows ready, silver teeth on the bolts. Aurora bared her teeth. Her wolf rose. She had been trained in tower courts and ritual yards. This was different. No polished sand, no elder calling form, only wind and blood and a boy who would die if she failed. The first bolt flew. The pinned boy screamed. Light burst from his wounded paw. Moonlight, sharp and solid, formed a shield between them and the bolt. Silver struck silver light and fell smoking into the snow. Aurora stared. The boy stared too. Then the hunters charged. Aurora ripped the spike free at last. She lifted the boy over one shoulder and ran blind into the salt storm. A second bolt grazed her thigh. A third sliced her braid. She did not slow. Hands found her in the white dark. At first she fought. "Peace," an old woman's voice snapped. "You saved Finn. That buys you one breath." They dragged her through a split in the ridge and down into hidden warmth. The camp was larger than it looked from above. Tunnels ran beneath salt stone. Fires burned in clay pits. Wolf skins hung beside church shields taken from dead hunters. Children watched from doorways with bright eyes. The old woman who had spoken wore a necklace of broken silver shackles. Her name was Mara. She was not a chief, she said. The salt packs did not kneel that way. But when she spoke, every wolf listened. Finn lay on a pallet while a healer cut the wire from his paw. Aurora stood near the wall, bleeding on the floor. Mara sniffed once. "Blackwood." "Yes." "Exiled." "Yes." "Good. Exile teaches faster than tutors." Aurora almost laughed. It came out as a breath. Mara looked toward Finn. "You saw what he did. He made moonlight hold shape. He did what his blood remembers. Mixed blood cannot do that." The room went silent. Mara's gaze sharpened. "Say that again if you want to sleep outside." Aurora held her ground, but shame warmed her throat. "That is what the council teaches. The council teaches what keeps it clean." Mara took a coal iron and drew a circle in the ash. Then she cut it into phases with quick strokes. Before the 12 houses, there were more lines under the moon. Storm wolves, thorn wolves, grave wolves, silver blade wolves. Not all shifted the same. Not all bowed to the same rites. The witch hunter wars should have united them. Instead, pure blood alphas feared what they could not command. She tapped the crescent mark. The silver blade wolves shaped moon phases, shields, knives, tides of light. They guarded dens when hunters came with silver nets. Then one council faction betrayed them and called the survivors unstable. Their children were denied names. Their blood was scattered into the flats. Aurora looked at Finn. The boy was watching her with fever-bright eyes. "So there are no mixed wolves," she said slowly. "There are forgotten wolves," Mara replied, "and there are liars who made forgetting useful." That night, Aurora slept among strangers who should have hated her. She woke before dawn to the sound of hammering. Metal struck metal in a steady rhythm, clear, patient, annoying. Aurora followed it through the tunnels to an open yard cut into the ridge. A man stood beneath a hide awning, working at a portable forge. He was tall, broad-shouldered, and dressed like a wanderer. His dark hair was tied at his neck. A leather patch covered his left eye. The other eye was plain gray in the dim light. Too plain. He lifted a glowing strip of iron and folded it with black tongs. "You bleed loudly," he said. Aurora glanced at her bandaged thigh. "You hammer loudly. Mine serves a purpose. So does bleeding when one saves a child." The corner of his mouth moved. Not quite a smile. Mara appeared behind her. "This is Derek." The man did not bow. "A wandering smith," Mara added. "Driven out by northern families, according to him." "According to him?" Aurora asked. "I do not trust men who arrive with useful skills and no past." Derek plunged the iron into water. Steam rose between them. "Trust the horseshoes first, judge the man later." Aurora disliked him immediately. That made it easier to notice him. In the following weeks, the salt flats tried to kill her in ordinary ways. Wind split her lips. Brine water turned her stomach. Old wounds reopened during training. The flats had no patience for a banished lady. If she wanted food, she carried salt bricks. If she wanted fire, she cut peat. If she wanted a place among them, she stood watch at night, while hunters moved beyond the ridges with bells muffled under cloth. Aurora learned quickly. She also failed loudly. The first time Mara taught her to call a moonblade, Aurora cut her own palm to the bone. Light flickered, formed half a knife, and broke into sparks. Derek appeared with clean linen and a paste of bitter herbs. "You pulled from the blood," he said. "That is what Mara told me. She told you to wake the blood, not drain it." Aurora narrowed her eyes. "The wandering smith knows silver blade rights? Old people talk near forges. Convenient." He took her wrist, then he stopped before touching skin. His fingers hovered a breath away. Slowly, he held out the linen for her to take instead. That small restraint unsettled her. Cain had always touched first and thought later. He had taken her hand at feasts, pulled her close under balconies, kissed her knuckles because everyone expected him to. Derek stood near enough to warm the air and still left the choice in her hand. She snatched the linen. "Tell me the flaw. You command moonlight like a servant. It is not one." "Then what is it?" "A witness." "That means nothing. It means you are still speaking like a council daughter." She threw the bloodied cloth at his chest. He caught it. "Better," he said. "At least that had aim." 2 days later, she tried again. This time she breathed before cutting. She let the moonlight touch the wound. She did not order it. She remembered Finn under the shrine. She remembered his pain. She remembered light choosing to stand between a child and death. A blade formed above her palm. Short, crooked, beautiful. It lasted 3 heartbeats. Then it burst and knocked her flat. Derek's laugh came from the wall. Aurora sat up with salt in her hair. "I will stab you when I learn how." "That is fair." Their days hardened into rhythm. Mara taught history the council had buried. Finn showed Aurora how light felt when it moved through fear. The salt wolves watched her less like an enemy and more like a risky tool. Derek repaired blades, pots, hinges, trap jaws, and once the cracked silver rim of an old moon bowl no pure blood priest had ever seen. At night, when Aurora walked the ridges, Derek followed 10 paces behind. Never 9. Never 11. "Do you follow all women in the dark?" she asked once. "Only the ones hunters want alive." "That sounds like concern." "It sounds like arithmetic." "Explain." "You are worth more captured than dead. That changes hunter behavior." She looked back. "And what am I worth to you?" The wind moved between them. Derek's one visible eye rested on her face. "A question I do not answer in bad weather." She hated that her pulse changed. During a lunar eclipse, she saw the first crack in his disguise. The camp gathered in silence as the moon darkened. Eclipses were dangerous for wolves. Blood fever rose. Old curses stirred. Even Mara kept iron knives close. Aurora stood near the forge yard, watching Derek bank the fire. The red moon slid behind cloud. For one moment, every flame leaned sideways. Derek looked up. 2 silver crescent lines flashed deep in his gray eye. Then they vanished. Aurora stopped breathing. No ordinary wolf carried that mark. No wandering smith hid that kind of moon. The next night she followed him. He left camp after midnight with no lantern. He crossed 3 salt ridges and a dry ravine. Aurora kept low, moving between stone teeth. The air smelled of cold brine. Far away, hunter bells chimed once and stopped. Derek walked to the salt lake. Under the moon, the lake looked like a sheet of broken glass. He knelt near its edge and drew something in the crust. Not prayer, not map, a pattern of phases. Aurora stepped closer. A hand caught her wrist. Stone slammed against her back. Derek had her pinned to the lake wall before she could shift. His forearm pressed above her collarbone. His body blocked the moon. The leather patch had come loose at one edge, but shadow hid the eye beneath. "Again," he said softly, "and I throw you into a hunter pit." Her heart hammered. Not from fear. That was the problem. You would have to find one first, she said. I found 6. Why are you here? Why are you following me? You lied. Everyone in exile has lied. Not everyone has silver crescents in his eyes. His grip changed. Just slightly. She felt the answer before he spoke. You saw too much. Then tell me enough. For a long moment he looked at her. The wind pushed strands of hair across her mouth. His gaze dropped there, only for a breath. Then he stepped back as if distance had teeth. Go back, Aurora. It was the first time he had used her name. She did not move. Derek. The name felt different now. His face closed. Please. That single word turned her more than force could have. She returned to camp angry, awake, and burning. 3 days later, he was gone. No farewell. No explanation. Only a dagger left on her sleeping mat. Its hilt was dark bone, its blade shimmered with moonsteel. Along both edges ran tiny carved symbols: full moon, waning half, black moon, crescent, tides, shield, cut, mercy. Aurora gripped it until the runes bit her palm. Outside, storm clouds swallowed the flats. She stood in the gale all night. By dawn, her lips were cracked, her hands were numb, her anger had burned down to something worse. Derek's leaving hurt in a place Cain had not reached. That knowledge frightened her. It also made her reckless. For 7 nights after he vanished, Aurora trained until Mara threw stones at her boots. She could call a blade now, but only in flashes. She could lift a shield, but it shook under pressure. The old rites described a form called the moon tide, a flood of shaped light wide enough to break a hunter line. Each time she tried, the light scattered like frightened birds. Again, Aurora said through clenched teeth. Mara folded her arms. No. Again. Your blood is not a bucket. The hunters will not wait for me to feel rested. Dead girls do not lead revolutions. Aurora swung at the salt post anyway. The blade formed, bright and curved, then shattered halfway through the strike. Pain cracked across her ribs. She dropped to one knee and coughed blood into the dust. Finn ran forward. Mara caught him by the collar. Let her taste her wisdom. Aurora wiped her mouth. That sounds like something Derek would say. He learned some sense before he lied to us. Aurora looked up sharply. Mara's face revealed nothing. You knew he was not a smith. I knew he was too clean with a warhammer. I knew his boots were northern make. I knew he watched exits before faces. That is not proof. That is weather. And you let him stay. He fixed our plow blades and killed 2 hunters beyond the West Ridge without asking for thanks. Aurora rose too fast and swayed. He killed hunters? You thought the bells stopped ringing by kindness? That silence hurt. Derek had guarded them more closely than he had admitted. He had followed her night patrols not because she was helpless, but because someone had been probing the camp. She remembered his 10 paces, the exact distance to intercept a bolt without crowding her. Anger became less clean. That made it worse. The next morning, Finn brought her a bowl of thin stew and sat beside her without asking permission. You miss him, he said. Aurora almost dropped the bowl. I miss my dagger's owner answering questions. That is a long way to say yes. You are too young to be smug. Pain made me mature. Your foot was wounded, not your tongue. He grinned, then grew serious. When hunters pinned me, I thought everyone had left. Then you came. I did not know your name. I knew your coat was fine and your accent was proud. I thought you would look at me and decide I was not worth the spike. Aurora stared into the stew. I am sorry. For saving me? For belonging to people who taught you to expect that. Finn picked at the bowl's rim. Then do not die proving you are different. Live long enough to make them learn. The words landed harder than Mara's stones. After that, Aurora changed how she trained. She stopped forcing the moon to answer her blood alone. She trained with Finn, with a claw-handed girl named Nessa, with an old wolf called Bram whose shift had frozen halfway decades before. Each carried a sliver of the buried line. None could do much alone. Together they could hold a shield long enough for a child to crawl beneath it. At first, Aurora hated the slowness. Then she saw the pattern. The council had built power like towers, one alpha above another, one name above another. Every law pointed upward. The silver blade rights moved in circles. No single wolf was the moon. Each was a phase. That discovery changed everything. One evening, Nessa lost control during a drill. Her left arm turned fully wolf and locked at the elbow. Panic seized her. The old shame rose fast in the watching faces. Broken shift. Failed form. Words no one spoke but everyone had heard. Aurora crossed the yard and held out her own half-shifted hand. "Look at me." Nessa shook her head. "It will not change back." "Then we wait until it does." "Everyone is staring." "Let them learn patience." Nessa gave a strangled laugh. Aurora sat in the dust beside her. One by one, others sat too. Finn first, Bram after. Mara last, muttering that young wolves had turned a training yard into a picnic of injuries. The arm changed back at moonrise. No one cheered. That was kinder. Aurora understood then that dignity was often quiet. The old council had made pity loud because loud pity kept the giver tall and the receiver small. She would not build the new law that way. 2 nights later, a stranger came to the ridge. He wore a pilgrim cloak and carried a wooden moon token at his throat. The watch dragged him in at spear point. He smelled human at first, then wolf under ash, then fear under both. "Name," Mara snapped. "Tobin," he said, "from Bracken Mill." Several salt wolves stiffened. Bracken Mill was a border settlement under Grey protection. It should not have known the hidden route to the camp. Tobin fell to his knees. "Please, they took my sister." Aurora moved closer. "Who did?" "Men with church bells. They came after a letter marked with the gray seal. They knew the root cellar. They knew which children had not shifted yet. My sister bit one and ran. I followed the old quarry path. A man with one eye told me if I reached the salt ridge, I should ask for the girl with silver blood." Aurora's pulse struck once. "Derek." Mara saw it. "How many taken?" 9 from Bracken Mill, more from Dove Ford. The hunters said they were gathering proof of wolf corruption for a great trial. Aurora knelt before him. "Did you see who gave the order?" Tobin shook his head. "Only a lady's glove, white, with gray pearls. Celine." The name passed through the camp like a knife drawn from leather. For once, Aurora did not rush. She sent scouts. She traced the quarry path. She questioned Tobin 3 times and gave him food between each, because fear makes memories jump. By dawn, they knew enough. The taken children were held in an abandoned tithe barn 2 leagues from the old Pilgrim Road. The hunters planned to move them north by wagon before the next moonrise. Aurora chose 12 wolves. Mara objected to every choice. "Too few. More will leave tracks. Too many young ones. Young ones know how children hide." "You are going." "Yes." "That is the stupid part." Aurora tied Derek's dagger at her waist. "Then make the rest clever." The rescue at the tithe barn became the first tale the Salt children told as if it were already legend. In truth, it was mud, terror, and splinters. Aurora crawled through a drainage ditch that smelled like rotten grain. Finn held a shield the size of a platter over a sleeping guard's lantern, while Nessa stole the keys from his belt. Bram, who could not run well, lay under a wagon and cut the axle pins. Mara walked straight through the front yard with a bottle of spirits and convinced 2 hunters she was a drunk shepherd, until she broke both their noses with the same cup. Inside the barn, 9 children crouched in a locked pen. The youngest had no teeth yet. Aurora's wolf nearly tore free. One little girl stared at her silver hair. "Are you the curse lady?" Aurora forced her voice steady. "Not tonight." "What are you tonight?" "The door." She cut the lock with a moonblade. They almost escaped cleanly. Almost. A hunter captain woke when Bram's wagon axle cracked too soon. Bells rang. Crossbows lifted. Aurora had 3 children in her arms and no room to shift. Finn's shield failed under the first volley. Then frost swept across the yard. Every bell clapper froze. The sound died inside the metal. On the hill beyond the barn, a dark figure stood for one heartbeat. One eye flashed silver beneath a hood. Then he vanished between the trees. Derek again. Aurora did not chase him. She carried the children home. That restraint cost her more than battle. When the rescued children slept in the salt tunnels, Tobin found his sister and sobbed into her hair. Aurora stood outside the doorway with blood drying on her sleeve. Mara came beside her. "You did well." "He was there." "Yes." "He still left." "Yes." "Why?" Mara looked over the dark flats. "Some wolves think love is bringing a blade from the shadows. They have to learn that staying in the light is harder." Aurora said nothing. But she remembered. In Thunderhold, Cain Gray began to lose his own body. At first it was small. He forgot council words during border reports. He signed patrol orders twice. He woke with mud under his nails and no memory of leaving bed. Celine laughed softly and blamed grief. "You carry too much," she said, pouring his tea. The tea smelled of rosehip and smoke. Under it lay something sweet. Cain noticed on the 4th week. "What is that scent?" Celine smiled. "South, honey." He drank because he was tired. By the next full moon, he could not shift cleanly. His wolf came late. Then it would not leave. He woke chained in the lower hall with 3 guards dead and Celine weeping beside him. Blood streaked her sleeves. None of it was hers. "You begged me not to call the elders," she whispered. "I protected you." Cain stared at his hands. They were still clawed. "How long?" "Until dawn." "That is impossible." "Not if your blood is unstable." He flinched. Blackwood blood, moon-silver blood, Aurora's blood. Celine touched his cheek. "She cursed you when you left her. I feared it from the first day." Cain closed his eyes. He saw Aurora on the chapel steps, proud, bleeding, alone. Then he saw Celine's torn shoulder. He chose the wound he could explain. That was easier than the woman he had failed to understand. Celine's second work was ink. She forged Cain's name with care. She knew how he pressed harder on the last stroke. She sealed orders with wax softened over his private lamp. 3 border settlements went to the church in one winter. Bracken Mill, Dove Ford, Little Ash. Human priests received maps. Hunters received names. Celine received promises. Not just safety. Rank. Recognition. A northern title no orphan could have earned. In private, she opened a black market vial and breathed the scent of taming musk. It softened alpha will, drop by drop, cup by cup. A strong wolf might resist it for months, but grief made soft doors. Cain had many doors now. "Dear husband," she whispered as he slept through another council supper, "your weakness will make a fine throne." She did not hate Aurora only for Cain. Cain was a tool. Aurora had been born loved, named, and guarded. Celine had been spared but never trusted. Old servants had stopped speaking when she entered rooms. Elders had looked at her mouth and seen her mother's treason. Children had laughed when her wolf form came thin and dark at full moon. Broken tail. Church whelp. Mercy pup. She remembered all of it. Every crust of pity. Every borrowed gown. Every time Aurora said, "You may ride with me," as if kindness could erase the shape of power. Celine had learned early that tears opened more doors than claws. Now she would open the last one. She would make the pure blood houses tear each other apart. She would feed enough wolves to the church to buy her own crown from the ashes. Let the hunters think they used her. Let the council think she feared them. Let Cain think she loved him. All of them had underestimated the orphan. All of them would pay. Celine's greatest weapon was not poison. It was timing. She never lied when a half-truth would bruise deeper. She did not tell Cain that Aurora had burned Bracken Mill. She only let him find the first church report on his desk after a night of fever. She did not accuse Blackwood servants of treason at once. She waited until a frightened maid dropped a tray at the word wolfsbane. Then she wept and asked why guilt always looked so clumsy. Cain hated himself for noticing patterns. Each time doubt rose, Celine gave him something soft to hold. A memory of her childhood hunger. A sleeve lifted to reveal an old scar. A whispered fear that Aurora's exile had not ended Aurora's reach. He had built his pride around being a protector. Celine made doubt feel like cruelty. She made suspicion feel like striking a wounded thing. So he turned away from it. That was how good men became useful to wicked ones. One rain-dark morning, Cain woke in the rookery with feathers stuck to his hands. 3 ravens lay dead at his feet. One carried a message tube crushed flat between his claws. He remembered nothing. Celine arrived before the guards. She wore a wool robe over her nightdress. Her hair hung loose. She looked frightened enough to be believed. "Cain!" He backed away from the birds. "Did I do this?" "You were sleepwalking." "The message." There was no message. He looked at the crushed tube. She moved between him and it. "Please, come inside before someone sees." But he had seen a smear of wax. White wax. Church wax. That afternoon, while Celine rested, Cain returned alone. The rookery had been cleaned. The birds were gone. So was the tube. He questioned the boy who tended the ravens. The boy stammered that Lady Grey had burned the remains for fear of disease. "Disease in a message tube?" Cain asked. The boy began to shake. Cain let him go. His wolf pressed against his skull again, sick and restless. He went to his mother's old chapel beneath the east tower. No one used it now. Celine said the old moon icons made her uneasy. Cain knelt before the cracked stone basin where his mother had taught him the first alpha prayers. "Show me one true thing," he whispered. The basin stayed dark. He cut his palm and let blood fall into the water. For a moment, a shape formed. Aurora on the chapel steps. Not as he remembered her. Not proud and cold. Bleeding. Young. Alone in a crowd that wanted an answer simpler than truth. Cain jerked back. The water stilled. Behind him, Celine spoke. "Still praying to her?" He turned. She stood in the doorway. Her face was unreadable. "This was my mother's chapel," he said. "Your mother would grieve to see you cursed by the girl you humiliated yourself trying to defend." "I did not defend Aurora." "No, you defended me, and now guilt makes you cruel." She said it softly. That was the worst of it. Anger would have freed him. Softness trapped him. Cain looked at his bleeding hand. "What was in the raven tube?" Celine went still for less than a blink. "Fever has made you suspicious." "Answer." Her eyes filled. "A report from Dove Ford. More dead. I hid it because you had not slept." "Show it to me." "I burned it." "Why?" Because it named Aurora. The chapel seemed to shrink. Cain wanted to demand proof. He wanted to call guards. He wanted to smell her sleeves for wax and smoke. Instead, the musk in his blood rolled through him like warm fog. His rage softened. His will bent. Celine crossed the chapel and took his wounded hand. This time he noticed the faint sweetness on her skin. He noticed it, and still he could not make his fingers pull away. "Let me carry the ugly things," she whispered. "You have carried enough." The words sank under his thoughts. By evening he had apologized to her. Celine rewarded him with tenderness. That night, after he slept, she opened the hidden drawer beneath his mother's prayer basin. The crushed raven message had not been burned. It lay there, damp but readable. Derek Warwick's seal marked the bottom edge, hidden beneath wax. Celine read the short warning again. "Gray, your house is compromised. Do not drink from your wife's hand. Send word by Frost Road if your mind remains your own." She smiled. "Too late, Frostclaw." She held the parchment to the candle flame. Blackened flakes rose toward the chapel ceiling. From that day, she moved faster. She ordered the steward replaced with a cousin of her mother's line. She sent the old kennel master to inspect remote pastures and arranged for him to fall from a bridge. She dismissed 2 maids who remembered too much from Blackwood Hall. One vanished on the West Road. One reached Aurora weeks later with half a story and a knife wound in her side. Every secret left a thread. Celine cut as many as she could. But not all. On the Salt Flats, Aurora bled for a different throne. Mara called the awakening right under a black frost moon. The whole camp gathered near the dry lake. Each wolf carried one memory of shame: a broken collar, a child's torn coat, a prayer token taken from a burned den. They placed them in a circle around Aurora. Finn set down the silver spike that had pinned his paw. "For the next child," he said. Aurora swallowed. Mara cut her own palm and marked Aurora's brow. "Moonlight does not choose clean blood," she said. "It chooses clear purpose." The rite began with silence. Aurora stood in the circle and let every stare touch her. Suspicion, hope, fear, anger. She did not turn away. Her Blackwood name had opened doors all her life. Here it was, a weight around her throat. She took the dagger Derek had left. Its runes warmed. She cut across her palm. Moon-silver blood fell onto salt. The ground answered. Light rose in thin lines. It circled her boots. It climbed her legs. Pain hit next, white and total. Her bones bent. Her skin split. Her wolf did not burst out. It unfolded. Aurora dropped to all fours. The world sharpened. She smelled salt under stone, iron under blood, old sorrow under every living heart. Fur swept over her body. Not black like House Blackwood, not gray like Thunderhold. Silver, living silver, molten under moonlight. Her claws touched earth and blades of light formed beneath them. The camp fell back. Finn laughed once, wild with wonder. Then the bells began. Hunters came over the eastern ridge in 3 lines. 37 men. Crossbows. Silver nets. 1 bishop in a white hood. They had chosen the right night. Someone had told them. Mara snarled orders. Wolves scrambled for weapons. Children vanished into tunnels. Aurora lifted her head. The new wolf inside her did not rage. It listened. The first net flew. Aurora moved. Moonlight gathered under her paws, then broke outward in a tide. It struck the hunters at knee height. Men flew backward. Crossbows snapped. Nets burned blue-white and fell apart. The second line tried to kneel and pray. The tide hit them too. 37 hunters fell before one reached the circle. Aurora stood among them, breathing steam. The bishop remained upright. Slowly he lifted both hands and pulled away the white hood. Celine smiled from beneath it. Gasps tore through the camp. Aurora shifted halfway, silver fur sliding back from her face. You came far for a widow's trick, she said. Not far enough, Celine replied. She looked at the fallen hunters with mild annoyance. I expected more of them to die slower. Mara raised her blade. Celine lifted a crystal between two fingers. Move, and every tower in the north sees only what I want. She crushed it. Light cracked. Images sprang upward in the air, Aurora in silver wolf form, hunters falling, human robes soaked with blood, a bishop's staff broken under her paw. The angles lead, the sound lied worse. Screams sharpened, prayers were added. Celine's face was absent. The image split into 12 streaks and shot north. Tower crystals. Aurora lunged. Celine vanished in a curl of church smoke. Only her voice remained. Run home, cousin. They are already coming. By dawn, every northern tower believed Aurora Blackwood had slaughtered a church delegation. By noon, the 12 houses called emergency judgment. By dusk, Kane Gray received the order he had avoided for months. March south. Seize Aurora Blackwood. Destroy the rebel camp if it resists. Kane read the command in his solar while rain lashed the windows. His hands shook, his wolf pressed against his skull, restless and sick. Celine stood behind his chair. You must go, she said. The images could be false. You saw her form. I saw a battle. You saw what she became. He turned. Celine's eyes were wet. She will ruin every house to prove she was wronged. How much blood must be shed before you stop pitying her? Kane flinched at the word pity. He did not pity Aurora. He feared remembering her correctly. Celine placed his sword in his hands. Her thumb brushed the hilt. A clear oil shone there for one breath, then soaked into the leather. Second draft. Stronger than tea. Crueler. Bring her back in chains, Celine said. Then perhaps the curse will end. Kane rode south with 500 wolves. Clouds followed. The armies met in the Black Forest, where old battle stones leaned among pines. The place had seen the first witch hunter war. It had drunk too much wolf blood to grow clean grass. Aurora stood at the head of the salt packs. They were fewer. Far fewer. Their armor did not match. Their banners were stitched from old coats. Finn stood near Mara with one paw still wrapped. Children too young to fight carried water behind the ridge. Kane looked at them and felt shame bite through the drug. Then he saw Aurora. She wore no Blackwood crest. Her cloak was salt gray. A moonsteel dagger hung at her waist. Her hair had been cut shorter, ragged at the ends. There was a scar on her cheek where the rose thorn had cut her. She looked less like the girl from the tower. She looked more true. His wolf buckled. Pain struck his spine. He bent in the saddle. The sword hilt burned against his palm. His claws burst through his gloves. The northern ranks stirred. Lord Grey, someone called. Kane tried to answer. A snarl came out. His bones shifted without command. Teeth filled his mouth. The world tilted red. In the tree line, hidden beneath a servant's hood, Celine watched and smiled. If Kane tore through his own men, the council would blame Aurora's moon's silver curse. If he killed Aurora, better. If he died, best. A dead husband made a clean widow. A mad alpha made a useful warning. Aurora saw him convulse. For one fierce instant, old pain begged her to let him fall. Let him taste disbelief. Let him choke on the loyalty he gave away. Let Celine's trap close. Then Finn shouted behind her. Aurora, the hilt. She saw it. Oil on leather, sweet smoke under iron, taming musk sharpened with black wolfsbane. Kane dropped from his horse. His wolf burst free. Huge, gray, wrong. Foam streaked his jaws, his eyes rolled white. Northern soldiers backed away, crossbows lifted on both sides. Aurora stepped forward alone. Mara cursed. "Girl." "Hold the line," Aurora said. She bit her finger. Moon-silver blood welled bright. She let it fall. One drop struck mud. The forest inhaled. Light spread from the drop in a pale ring. It moved under boots, roots, paws, and stone. Every wolf it touched felt a cold, clear wind pass through the soul. Rage lost its hooks. Fear lost its teeth. Lies lost their borrowed faces. The old name rose in Mara's throat. Breath of unveiling. The ring widened. Hidden glamour burned away. 300 wolves in the northern ranks blinked as if waking. Men who had signed false orders remembered doing so with fogged minds. Guards remembered Selene walking alone to forbidden woods. A maid remembered burning letters by Selene's command. Cain saw flashes hit him like arrows. Selene pricking her own finger over his sword. Selene laughing before she saw him enter. Selene's shoulder wound, torn downward, not sideways. Selene pouring tea. Selene whispering weakness. He collapsed half-human in the mud. At the tree line, Selene's sleeve exploded. The vial hidden there burst under the breath. Taming musk steamed from the cloth. Wolves nearby recoiled. Every head turned. Selene froze. Aurora lifted her hand. "Come out, cousin." Selene stepped from the trees. For the first time, she did not look soft. Her face had gone sharp, her lips peeled back from her teeth. The false widow's hood slipped from her hair. "You think one trick makes you queen?" "No," Aurora said. "Truth does not crown, it strips." She drew the old blackwood notes from the inner pocket of her cloak. The pages were worn now. Salt had stiffened their edges. Mara Vale sold 3 dens to witch hunters: Red Ford, Winter Hollow, St. Oran's Well. She took church coin and named sleeping children. Selene screamed over her. "Lies!" Aurora read louder. At moonrise, Mara confessed to correspondence with Bishop Aldrin. Sentence passed by the Northern Council. Child spared at Lord Blackwood's plea. The elders murmured. Some knew. Some had buried it so long they had mistaken silence for mercy. Cain pushed himself upright, shaking. His eyes locked on Selene. "Your mother." "My mother was murdered by wolves who feared her mind," Selene spat. "You told me fever took her." "You needed a simple grief." Something broke in Cain's face. Aurora almost looked away. Then Cain reached under his torn collar and pulled out the wolf-tooth pendant Selene had given him on their wedding night. "You said this proved your father hunted beside ours." Selene lunged. Too late. Cain cracked the tooth against a stone. The outer shell split. Inside, etched in black silver, lay a small crest, a crescent cut by a dagger. The mark of the kinslayers, a traitor branch erased from council rolls 300 years earlier. Mara hissed. Several elders stepped back. Selene stopped pretending. "Yes," she said. Her voice rang through the trees. "Yes, I come from the line you tried to erase. Yes, Blackwood took me in to polish its mercy. Do you know what mercy tastes like when served from a high table? It tastes like scraps. It tastes like everyone waiting for your blood to become your mother's crime." She pointed at Aurora. "She had love before she had teeth. She had a name before she had a voice. I had lowered eyes and borrowed gowns. So I learned what none of you respect until too late. I learned patience." Aurora felt the old pity stir. She killed it. "You could have walked away." "Into what? A hut? A husband from some weak line? A lifetime of thanks for not being drowned at birth? You chose hunters. I chose winners." From her cloak, Selene drew a compact crossbow. Its bolt was black. Silver venom dripped from the tip. She fired at Aurora's heart. The forest slowed. Aurora saw the bolt come. She lifted the moon dagger, too late by half a breath. A shadow struck from her left. The bolt sank into flesh with a hiss. Derek stood between them. His shoulder smoked where the silver venom burned. He did not flinch. His right hand closed around the crossbow. Iron screamed. Wood shattered. He crushed the weapon to powder. Aurora could not breathe. "You," she whispered. Derek looked back. The leather patch was gone. Both eyes were open. In each gray iris burned two clear silver crescents. Celine staggered. Warwick. The northern wolves dropped lower without meaning to. Whispers moved through the ranks. Derek Warwick. Lord of Frostwolf Keep. The Frostclaw. Ancient Alpha. Dragon Killer. Neutral Lord of the Far Peaks. Aurora tore open his coat at the shoulder. Beneath the wound, burned into his skin, lay the Frostwolf crest. She stared at it. Then at him. "You are a lord." "Sometimes." "You are bleeding silver poison." "Also sometimes." "You lied to me." "Yes." His knees struck the mud. "Not from the poison." He bowed his head before her in front of both armies. "The runes on the dagger were carved by my mother before she died. I have searched 700 years for the branch that could wake them fully." Aurora's hand shook. "For my blood." He looked up. Pain had silvered his lips. Still his voice stayed low and steady. "No, for the girl at the salt lake who told a crippled boy that moonlight does not choose clean blood. I searched for the bloodline. I stayed for the woman." Her throat closed. This was a battlefield. Men were bleeding. Celine was loose. Cain watched from the mud with ruin in his eyes. None of that stopped the fierce, stupid tears burning behind Aurora's lashes. She drew Derek's dagger and set it against his throat. "You knew who I was. Why speak now?" He raised one hand and closed it around the blade. Moonsteel cut his palm. Silver blood slid through his fingers and fell on her wrist. "Because I feared the word Lord would build a wall before you knew the man. I wanted you to meet the wanderer who ruined barley porridge. Then you could decide whether to hate me." Aurora laughed once. It sounded almost like a sob. "I may still hate you." "Reasonable." Celine screamed. The sound split the trees. She swallowed something dark from a ring vial before anyone could stop her. Her body bent backward. Bones cracked. Fur burst from her skin in rotten patches. One tail lashed out, then a second, then a third, crooked and black. Her wolf form swelled too large, wrong in every joint, with 3 tails whipping like serpents. The drug had not made her strong. It had made her honest. She charged Aurora. Derek tried to rise. Aurora shoved him back. "Stay down." "No." "Bleed quietly, Lord." Then she shifted. Silver light swallowed her. Aurora's wolf met Celine in the broken center of the old battlefield. Claws struck claws. Celine's 3 tails snapped at Aurora's eyes and throat. One cut her flank. Another wrapped her hind leg. The third drove a poisoned barb toward her spine. Aurora fell. Celine came down on her. "Still the beloved daughter," Celine snarled. "Still waiting for someone to save you." Aurora stopped fighting for one heartbeat. She heard the old chapel, the torn contract, the council decree, the salt storm, Finn's laugh, Derek's hammer, Mara's voice. Moonlight is a witness, not a servant. Aurora opened her claws. The light under the battlefield answered. It had waited there for centuries, caught in stones that remembered the first betrayal. It rose in a curved blade wider than a wagon road. Aurora rolled aside. The moon arc struck. Celine flew backward and slammed into an ancient battle marker. Silver light pinned her through both shoulders. Her 3 tails thrashed. The drug burned through her blood. Fur peeled away in smoking clumps. Her great wolf body shrank, twisted, and broke back into human shape. She hung against the stone, gasping. Still alive. Defeated. Not forgiven. The church horns sounded from the south. Everyone turned. Beyond the black trees, iron helmets flashed in the dawn. The main witch hunter host had arrived. Hundreds of men marched under white crosses and red moon banners stolen from fallen wolf shrines. Priests carried silver censers. Engineers pushed wheeled frames fitted with bolt throwers. Celine coughed blood and smiled. "Too late," she whispered. "I only had to hold you here." The first volley darkened the sky. Aurora ran to Derek. He was on his feet now because of course he was. Silver venom still smoked in his shoulder. He lifted one hand. Frost burst outward. Half the arrows froze and fell. The rest struck shields of moonlight raised by Finn and the silver-blade wolves. Northern soldiers stared at the salt packs they had come to destroy. Then Mara roared. "Choose now." It was not a request. The church line advanced. Cain looked at Aurora. Mud streaked his face. Shame had aged him 10 years before sunrise. He drew his sword with a ruined hand and turned toward the hunters. "Gray wolves," he shouted, his voice cracked but held. "With me." Some followed at once. Some hesitated. Then Lord Ash raised his blade. Stonefang with the moon. Another banner turned. Then another. The civil war Celine wanted collapsed into something sharper. A reckoning. Aurora ran at the front. Moonlight hardened along her arms into twin blades. She cut through the first silver net. Finn raised a wall of pale light over the children carrying water. Mara drove a spear through a masked captain and took his horse out from under him. Derek moved beside Aurora like winter given bone. Every step lowered the air. Blood froze on enemy steel. The hunters had expected divided wolves. They met a people waking up. Still, the church host was vast. A bolt thrower fired. The spear was as long as a man and tipped with consecrated silver. It tore through 3 shields and drove straight toward Aurora's chest. Derek caught it. Both his boots carved trenches in the mud. The silver head burned his palms. He growled, twisted, and snapped the shaft across his knee. "Stop taking my wounds," Aurora shouted. "Stop standing where arrows are rude. This is not the time. You began the conversation." She almost smiled. Then a priest released a cage of smoke ravens, not living birds, spells made from ash and bone. They screamed as they flew, carrying flecks of silver dust toward the wolf lines. Aurora raised both hands. Her blood answered too fast. Pain lanced up her arms. She could not shape enough light. There were too many. Finn limped beside her. "Together," he said. Mara came next. Then a girl with clawed hands. Then an old man with smoke tail. Then 20 salt wolves, each bearing some forgotten fragment of the silver blade line. Their moonlight was uneven, pale, gold, blue-white, thin as thread in some hands, broad as shields in others. Aurora did not command them. She breathed with them. The ravens struck a dome of joined light and burst into harmless ash. The northern elders saw. So did their soldiers. No mixed blood. Forgotten blood. Necessary blood. The battle turned at the Black River. Aurora gathered the moon phases into one tide, not alone, never alone. Finn held the shield edge. Mara anchored the crescent. Derek, bleeding and furious, lent frost to the blade. Even Cain, half poisoned and broken, stood behind them with gray wolves locking shields against the last charge. The tide broke loose. It swept across the field with a sound like 1,000 doors opening. It did not slaughter the fleeing. It shattered weapons. It split silver chains. It overturned siege frames and cast priests into the river mud. The witch hunter host broke and ran for the far bank. Aurora stopped at the water's edge. She could have chased them. The wolf in her wanted to. Then she saw a young human squire trapped beneath a fallen wheel, too terrified to breathe. He could not be more than 12. Aurora lifted the wheel and dragged him free. "Run home," she said. He did. Derek came to stand beside her. "Mercy again. Do not sound surprised." "I am not." "You are bleeding again." Also not surprised. The sun rose weakly over the Black River. Steam lifted from the battlefield. Wolves stood among broken church banners and looked at one another as if seeing kin through fog. Aurora turned to the 12 elders. Her voice carried without shouting. "Your arrogance weakened us before any hunter crossed a border. You named whole bloodlines impure because you feared power that did not kneel. You let pity replace justice. You let silence dress itself as peace. This ends." No elder answered. Not then. The old world had no words ready for its own disgrace. Celine was found still pinned to the battle marker. She had tried to crawl away. The drug had ruined her wolf. Her hands ended in blackened claws that could not retract. She spat when Aurora approached. "Kill me." "No." "Coward." "No," Aurora said again. "Death is too clean for a woman who sold dens to hunters." Cain stood several paces behind. "Aurora," he said. She did not turn. "Not now." Those 2 words stopped him more surely than chains. The battlefield did not become noble after victory. It smelled of churned mud, torn wool, fear, and opened bodies. Wolves searched among the fallen with lanterns held low. Some found brothers. Some found enemies young enough to make hatred falter. The Black River carried broken shields against its stones and turned them slowly in the current. Aurora worked until her hands went numb. She sealed wounds with moonlight until her vision blurred. She held a dying Stonefang soldier while he begged her to tell his mate he had turned his banner before the end. She listened to a church archer confess that he had been told wolf children were born without souls. He was 17. He died before she could decide what answer would have helped him. Near midnight, Mara took Aurora by both shoulders. "Sit. There are more wounded. There will be fewer leaders if you fall on your face." "I can stand." That was not the command. Aurora sat on a split log because Mara had the tone of a woman prepared to win by violence. Derek came from the healer tents with his left arm bound from shoulder to wrist. The bandage was already stained silver gray. He carried 2 cups of bitter bark tea. Aurora accepted one. "You look terrible. You look like you argued with a siege engine." "I won." "Barely." He sat beside her, leaving a careful inch between them. That inch irritated her. "If you are trying to be respectful, stop." He looked at the space. "I was trying not to bleed on you." "You already bled on my wrist during your dramatic confession." "I remember it as dignified." "You were kneeling in mud." "Dignified mud." She drank the tea and grimaced. "This tastes like old bark and punishment." "It is old bark and punishment." For a while they watched the lanterns move. Cain stood across the field, speaking with gray captains. He did not look toward Aurora. Every line of his body showed the strain of not looking. That restraint gave her a strange, sad relief. Perhaps regret had finally taught him manners. Derek followed her gaze. "He will ask again." "Maybe." "What will you say?" Aurora turned the cup in her hands. "I do not owe him the woman he remembers." "No. I do not know whether I owe him hatred either." "Hatred is expensive." "You sound experienced." His face changed. "Only slightly. I spent 2 centuries hating men already dead. It kept them close. That was the worst part." Aurora looked at him then. He had always seemed carved from endurance. Ancient, yes, though he hid it behind dry remarks and burned porridge. Now she saw the fatigue under the legend. 700 years was not romance, it was graves. It was wading through winters while names vanished from law and lullaby. "How did you stop?" she asked. "I did not. Not all at once. I found tasks too useful for hatred to interrupt. A rescued child, a stolen record, a border patrol warned in time. Eventually, the dead became ancestors again instead of jailers." Aurora held those words carefully. "I do not want Celine living inside my every choice." "Then give her a cell outside you." It was the right answer. She hated that he had it. "You are still in trouble." I expected no less. Across the field, Finn began singing to keep wounded children awake. His voice cracked on the high notes. Nessa joined him, then Bram. Soon a rough song moved through the camp, not pretty, but stubbornly alive. Aurora leaned back against the log. "When I was little, Kane and I climbed the West Tower during a storm. He said thunder was only the sky shifting bones. I believed him for an entire year." Derek listened without stiffening. That mattered. "I loved him before I knew what love asks," she continued. "It was all moonlight and promises, easy things. Then he had to choose between the truth of me and the comfort of saving someone else. He chose comfort. Many do. You did too, in your way." Derek took the blow without defense. "Yes. You chose the comfort of hiding." "Yes. Do not do that again." "I will not." No flourish. No oath on blood. No ancient language. Just 4 words. They settled better than poetry. Before dawn, the dead were separated by banner, then by name, then by those no one could name. Aurora ordered the unnamed buried under flat stones facing the moon. Some elders objected to burying church soldiers near wolves. Aurora looked at the rows of young faces. "The earth has more patience than we do." No one argued. At sunrise, Lord Ash approached with 5 elders behind him. Their cloaks were torn from battle. Their pride was in worse condition. "Lady Blackwood," he began. Aurora stood. "That title was stripped." Lord Ash swallowed. "Aurora, then." "That will do." He looked toward Mara, Finn, Nessa, and the salt wolves guarding the wounded. "We misjudged the southern packs." Mara barked a laugh. "Misjudged is when you mistake rain for snow. You erased us." Lord Ash bowed his head. "Yes." The word startled even him. Aurora waited. He forced himself onward. The council must meet, publicly, with records opened. If the old charges against the Silver Blade lines were false, law requires correction. Law required correction before you needed our shields. Yes. That second yes weighed more. Aurora looked at the elders one by one. "You will not examine us like curiosities. You will not invite one salt elder to sit silent while you decide our worth. Every hidden decree comes out. Every confiscated land record. Every prison list. Every child taken into house service under purity law. If you want a council, bring the bones too." One elder paled. That could break 3 houses. Then they were already broken. Lord Ash met her eyes. Agreed. Mara leaned close to Aurora. "Make him say it before witnesses." Aurora almost smiled. "You heard Elder Mara." Lord Ash turned to the gathered soldiers, wounded, healers, and prisoners. His voice carried over the trampled field. "Stonefang calls for an open council. All records concerning the Silver Blade bloodlines and the Southern exiles will be surrendered under Moon Oath. No rank of pure or mixed blood will govern who may speak." The field went silent. Then Finn lifted his scarred paw. "Say forgotten packs." Lord Ash blinked. "What?" Southern Exiles is your name, Forgotten Pax is ours. For a moment, old annoyance crossed the elder's face, then he mastered it. The Forgotten Pax, he said louder. A sound rose from the salt wolves. Not cheering. Not yet. It was deeper. A breath held for generations, finally released. Aurora felt it move through her bones. Victory had been loud at the river. This was quieter. This was the beginning. In the days after the battle, truth traveled faster than rumor had. Tower crystals replayed the unveiled images, guards confessed, maids named hidden orders. Kane's forged signatures were shown beside Celine's practice sheets. The church maps of Bracken Mill, Dove Ford, and Little Ash were found sealed in Celine's private chest, along with Taming Musk, Black Wolf's Bane, and letters from Bishop Aldrin's successor promising her rule over the pacified North. The elders could not bury so much evidence. They tried at first. Old habits die with claws out. Lord Ashe suggested a temporary inquiry. Lady Voss spoke of preserving stability. A priest asked whether public knowledge of ancient bloodlines might cause panic. Mara laughed until the hall went silent. Aurora placed the broken silver spike from Finn's paw on the council table. This is what your stability bought. No one moved it. 3 weeks later, on the ruins of a watchtower near the Salt Flats, Aurora refused formal recall to House Blackwood. Her father came in person. Lord Blackwood looked smaller outside his hall. He held the old family crest in both hands, the black wolf on silver, the pin once torn from her cloak. "Come home," he said. Aurora looked past him to the flats. Children were carrying stone for new walls. Finn was arguing with Derek over a hinge. Mara was shouting at 3 northern masons who clearly regretted waking up. "I am home." Pain crossed her father's face. "I failed you." "Yes." He closed his eyes. She let the word stand. Forgiveness given too quickly can become another lie. After a while, she touched his hand. "You can help build what comes next." He bowed his head. Not to a daughter. To a leader. The Silver Moon Council began with no throne. Aurora insisted on that first. They met under open sky on the Salt Flats, where no carved roof could pretend to be older than the moon. Every recognized house sent delegates. Every forgotten pack sent voices of its own. Those with broken shifts sat beside alphas. Those once barred from rites carried moon bowls. Children watched from the ridge because Aurora wanted them to see law made in daylight. The first decree abolished pure and mixed ranks in all council speech. The second opened moon rights to every bloodline. The third ordered restitution for the erased Silverblade families. The fourth created border watches shared by all packs, so no lord could trade a village in secret again. The fifth stripped Celine Vale of wolf form by ancient sentence. Mara argued against the fifth. No council should have that power. Aurora listened. Then Finn, quiet until then, placed his scarred paw on the table. She sold children. The vote passed with limits. Celine would not be tortured, she would not be displayed. She would be held in the same silver prison the hunters had used beneath St. Oran's ruined abbey until the end of her natural life. The cell would be guarded by wolves from no single house. When they took her away, Celine did not cry. She smiled at Aurora. "You think he will love your scars?" Derek, standing behind Aurora, answered before she could. "I counted them while she slept after the river battle. I missed 2. That still bothers me." Aurora turned and stared. "You counted my scars?" "For medical reasons." Mara snorted. Celine's smile died. Small justice, Aurora thought, could be very satisfying. Kane came at sunset after the third council day. He wore no mantle. His hair had been cut roughly at the jaw. The alpha collar at his throat, once silver gray and polished, had been severed and mended with plain iron links. 3 breaks showed where he had cut it himself. He knelt in the salt dust before her. The sight moved the camp into silence. Aurora stood with a stack of law tablets under one arm. "Rise," she said. "I have no right." "That was not kindness. My neck hurts looking down." He rose slowly. His gray eyes were clear now, haunted, but clear. "I believed her," he said. "Yes. I wanted simple answers. Yes. I let her pain excuse every doubt." Aurora said nothing. Cain swallowed. "I loved the idea of protecting someone who made me feel noble. With you, I had to stand equal. That frightened me more than I understood." It was the first honest thing he had said in years. It did not repair anything. "I am sorry," he said. The words were bare. No plea inside them. That helped. "Your regret belongs to you," Aurora said. "Use it well." Hope flickered in his face, and she hated that he still knew how to make her remember the tower. Could there be a road back someday? Derek stepped from the shadow of the new wall carrying a wolf skin cloak. He did not speak. He only set it around Aurora's shoulders because the evening wind had sharpened. The motion was familiar now. Too familiar for Cain to misunderstand. Aurora rested one hand on the cloak clasp. "When you tore the contract, I heard the moon goddess weep," she said. "Today she laughed very loudly." Cain looked at Derek. His claws flexed once, then stilled. There was no challenge in him, not because he was weak, because he finally knew the difference between love and possession. "I will guard the border," Cain said. "Then guard it." He bowed and left. Aurora watched only long enough to be sure he would not fall. Then she turned back to the work. Derek walked beside her toward the council fires. That was merciful. It was final. Both can be true. "Do not become wise at me. I will try to be foolish by supper. You owe me supper. I owe you many things." She glanced at him. He looked ahead, but the tips of his ears had reddened. That pleased her more than it should. War did not end in one battle. The church lost the Black River, but its remnants hid in abbeys, mines, and border forts. They hired mercenaries and desperate sons. They sent assassins in pilgrim wool. They poisoned wells and blamed wolves. The new council had to survive long enough to become more than a brave idea. Aurora rode for months. Salt flats to pine valleys. Pine valleys to ruined shrines. Ruined shrines to villages that had never seen a Blackwood woman arrive without tax riders. She brought healers first. That mattered. Law meant little to a mother whose child still screamed at the smell of silver. Decrees did not mend burned barns, so Aurora learned names. She sat in smoky huts. She listened to old anger without defending herself. Sometimes she slept on floors while villagers whispered that pure bloods could not bear straw. In the morning, she rose stiff and proved them wrong. Derek remained near, though never in the way. At St. Oran's Ford, he took 3 arrows meant for her back. At the Red Chapel, Aurora cut silver poison from his ribs with the moon dagger while he gripped a table and complained only that the priest's wine was sour. At Winter Hollow, they found 7 wolf children hidden in a cellar beside a dead nun who had protected them from her own order. Aurora buried the nun under both moonstone and cross. Some wolves objected. "She was church," said a Thornhill captain. "She was brave," Aurora replied. That ended the argument. One night after Winter Hollow, Aurora collapsed against Derek's shoulder by the watchfire. Rain tapped on the broken roof above them. Her hands shook from overuse. Moon shaping took blood even when done well. She woke half an hour later to Derek speaking softly at the sky. "If you die," he told the moon, "I will turn every salt flat into a rose garden and make her sneeze herself back to life." Aurora kept her eyes closed. "I hate roses." He went still. I know. And pollen. That was the threat. She laughed, and the laugh turned wet. He did not mention the tears. Instead, he shifted slightly so her head rested easier against him. After that night, she stopped calling him Smith in anger. She called him Derek. Every time, his answer came a fraction too soft. The final assassination attempt came at the founding ceremony. By then, the Silver Moon Council had a hall, though Aurora refused doors on the main chamber. The roof was cedar. The floor was pale stone from the flats. Behind the central table rose a new altar, not to power, but to witness. In its surface were set a broken hunter bell, a child's collar, a blackwood seal, a gray storm clasp, and the silver spike that had pinned Finn. Delegates gathered from every direction. Some wore silk, some wore patched leather, some wore no shoes. No one was turned away for the shape of their wolf. Aurora stood at the altar with Mara on one side and Lord Blackwood on the other. Cain stood in the outer ring with border captains. He had kept his word. The northern passes had held through 3 raids because of him. Derek was absent. That irritated her. It should not have. The ceremony began under a blood moon. Aurora cut her palm over the altar and spoke the oath. No bloodline shall be erased for another's comfort. No child shall inherit a parent's guilt without deed. No council shall hide truth to preserve its pride. Moonlight falls on roof, den, field, and prison alike. So shall our law. The hall answered. So shall our law. Then the lamps went out. 30 silver arrows flew from the rafters. The first aimed for Aurora's throat. They stopped in midair. Frost crept over each shaft, silver heads cracked, wood whitened. One by one, the arrows became ice dust and drifted to the floor. Derek walked from the blood moon shadow behind the altar. He wore black armor under a white wolf cloak, no eye patch, no false plainness. The silver crescents in his eyes shone clear enough for the back rows to see. In his left hand, he held one assassin by the collar. The man was frozen to the eyebrows. The roof needs better guards, Derek said. Aurora exhaled. You are late. I was removing guests. From my roof. Yes. Without telling me. A poor choice. We will discuss that. I feared so. He dropped the assassin. Guards seized the man and dragged him away with the others, flushed from the rafters by Frostwolf soldiers. Then Derek turned to the gathered council. His wolf presence unfurled. It did not roar. It did not press like Cain's stormwolf had in youth. It descended like winter over mountains, immense and quiet. Every alpha in the hall felt the old strength and lowered their eyes. Frostwolf keep recognizes the Silver Moon Council, Derek said. My lands will guard its northern ice road. My soldiers will answer its lawful call. My house will no longer pretend neutrality while injustice feeds our enemies. He approached Aurora. From a chain around his neck, he removed an obsidian ring carved with the frost wolf crest and a thin crescent blade. Gasps stirred. Mara's brows rose. Lord Blackwood looked from the ring to Derek with sudden understanding. Cain in the outer ring went very still. Derek took Aurora's hand, then paused. He did not force the ring onto her finger. He offered it on his palm. Frostwolf law names this the co-ruler's ring, he said. The last wearer was a moon priestess 300 years ago. I offer it as alliance first, affection second, debt third, because you will certainly mention the lies again. Aurora looked at the ring. Then at him. Only third. I was hopeful. The hall waited. She could feel every gaze. Old houses, forgotten packs, her father, Cain, Finn grinning like a fool, Mara pretending not to care and failing. Aurora took the ring. She placed it on her own finger. Alliance accepted, she said. Derek's breath caught. She stepped closer. Affection under review. Strict but fair. Debt remains large. Expected. The hall broke into low laughter, then applause, then howls that shook dust from the rafters. Cain lowered his head. It was not defeat alone, it was recognition. Derek looked at Aurora as if her strength did not threaten him, as if her choices were not wounds to his pride, as if loving her meant standing where she could see him, not where he could cast a shadow over her. Cain had never given her that. Now he knew it. That night, after the council fires burned low, Derek took Aurora to Frostwolf Keep. They rode without escort for the last mile. Snow fell in slow flakes over the mountain road. Frostwolf Keep rose ahead, carved into a cliff of blue stone. Its towers shone under moonlight. No banners snapped. The wind was too cold for drama. Aurora dismounted at the highest gate. You live here and chose to sleep beside a salt forge. The forge had better company. The forge had Mara yelling at everyone. As I said. He led her to the highest tower. The chamber at the top held no throne, only a round window open to the moon, a low table, 2 chairs, and shelves of old books bound in pale leather. Aurora walked to the window. Below, the mountains rolled white and dark toward the north. Far away, the salt flats lay unseen beyond leagues of forest and road. Somewhere there, new walls rose. Somewhere behind them, children slept without hiding their claws. Derek stood behind her, silent. Tell me the rest, she said. He did not ask what she meant. My mother was Silverblade, he said. From the last northern branch, the council hunted them under a false charge when I was young. Young for you means what? 70. She turned. That is not young. It was to my mother. Despite herself, Aurora smiled. Derek touched the crescent marks near his eyes. She hid me with Frostwolf kin. I grew under another name. Later I took the lordship because no one expected a dead bloodline to sit in a high seat. I spent centuries collecting proof, kinslayer remnants, church alliances, council decrees with missing pages. I found traces of your line 10 years ago. 700 years, Aurora said. From my mother's death to you. You waited for a weapon. He shook his head. At first, perhaps. Grief can make even justice ugly. Then I saw you in the salt camp. You had lost house, rank, betrothal, and safety. Still, you told Finn Moonlight did not choose people by blood. My mother used those exact words before she sent me away. His voice roughened. That was when I stopped looking for a weapon. Aurora looked at his hands. Broad, scarred, burned by silver, gentle when they needed to be. You should have trusted me. Yes. I might have understood. I know. I am still angry. I know that too. She stepped closer. Good. The moon lit both crescents in his eyes. He spoke in a language older than the council. The words touched her blood before her mind. I waited for the wolf who would make moonlight fair again. Aurora rose onto her toes and kissed him. It was light. Barely more than warmth. Yet Derek went utterly still, as if 3 dragon fights had not prepared him for a woman's mouth. She drew back. You waited long enough. Apparently not long enough to learn speech. You owe me 100 pots of burned barley porridge. His eyes focused with effort. As punishment? 1 pot each morning for 100 days. You will eat it too. That is severe. You lied. I accept the sentence. And Derek. Yes. No more vanishing. The humor left him. Never by choice. She believed that. Not because love made her foolish. Because he had earned the next answer, not the last one. Months became a year. The Silver Moon Council survived its first winter. That was a greater victory than any battle song admitted. Grain wagons reached the flats before deep frost. Border patrols mixed old houses and forgotten packs until young wolves stopped asking who was pure enough to lead a trail. Moon rites changed slowly. Some elders resisted, some left, others stayed and learned new words for old shame. Aurora made mistakes. She trusted one Stonefang clerk too quickly, and he sold patrol routes for church gold. She drove herself past exhaustion during a fever outbreak and had to be carried to bed by Mara, who cursed her for trying to become a martyr before breakfast. She spoke too sharply to her father in public once and apologized in public the next day. Power, she learned, did not become clean because she held it. It had to be washed every day. Derek burned 97 pots of porridge. The first was black enough to tar a roof. The second had salt instead of barley because Finn changed the jars. The third made Mara threaten legal action. By the 20th, Derek could produce something almost edible. By the 50th, Aurora suspected he burned one edge on purpose because she laughed when he looked offended. On the 100th morning, he served perfect porridge with honey, cream, and winter berries. Aurora tasted it. Unacceptable. Derek frowned. It is not burned. Exactly. Finn, now taller and far too pleased with himself, choked on laughter from the doorway. Mara declared the sentence extended until morale improved. Aurora did not argue. Far north, Cain kept the passes. He did not remarry. He did not ask again. Each full moon he climbed the broken tower where he and Aurora had once sworn pup vows. From there he could see, on clear nights, the pale lamp of the Silver Moon Hall. It burned over the flats like a star that had chosen Earth. The light hurt. He let it. Pain, rightly used, became a guard at the door of old mistakes. Celine lived beneath St. Oran's ruined abbey. Her silver cell was clean. Her food was plain. No one mocked her, no one comforted her with lies. Without wolf form, her body remained human, though her eyes sometimes flashed with the shape of what she had lost. For the first months, she screamed through every moonrise. Then she cursed. Then she bargained. At last, she asked for books. Aurora sent histories. Not flattering ones. Not cruel ones. True ones. Whether Celine read them, no one knew. On the second spring after the Black River, the council held a remembrance at the old battlefield. Wolves from every line placed stones for the dead. Human villagers from Winter Hollow came too, carrying bread and salt. The young squire Aurora had spared stood among them. He was taller now. He bowed awkwardly when she passed. Aurora nodded back. No peace begins grand. Most begin with one life not taken. At dusk, Aurora and Derek climbed the ancient battle marker where Celine had been pinned. The stone had been cleansed, but a silver scar remained in its face. Grass grew around its base for the first time in memory. Cain stood below with the border guard. Lord Blackwood spoke quietly with Mara. Finn showed two young pups how to shape a thumb-sized moonshield and pretended not to enjoy their applause. Derek offered Aurora his hand. She took it. Their fingers locked easily now. "Your story is still being written," he said. Aurora looked over the field. Once, she had wanted vindication like fire. She had imagined Cain kneeling, Celine exposed, the elders shamed. All of that had come, and none of it had been enough by itself. Revenge could clear a path. It could not build a home. "Then we write it carefully," she said. Snow began to fall, late and light, though spring had already touched the valley. It settled on Derek's dark hair and Aurora's silver cloak. He bent his head until his brow touched hers. "Carefully," he agreed. Below them, the new council fires came alive one by one. Old wolves and young wolves gathered around them without asking whose blood deserved warmth. Somewhere beyond the river, the church bells rang for evening prayer. This time, no one reached for a weapon. Aurora listened to both sounds. Fire and bell. Wolf and human. memory and beginning. The moon rose clean over the black forest. It did not choose the highest tower. It did not choose the purest name. It fell on salt, stone, scar, and snow. Aurora smiled into Derek's warmth and did not look back. She had given up being forgiven by those who had broken her. She had chosen what was worthy. That choice changed the North more than any crown.